Looks like that's working. Let me fiddle with this here. I don't think that's what I want. There we go. Okay, well, thank you for joining me this evening. My name is Christy Hillock, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. My business is CJ Card Creations. I am so grateful for you watching this live or on the replay, and I hope that you feel inspired by what I have to share tonight. It's St. Patrick's Day, so happy St. Patty's Day. Hope you've had something deliciously Irish. And you may have noticed that I've been much more active posting today, just different kind of, well, I can't even think of the word, but sort of appropriate for the holiday sorts of posts. So I hope you've enjoyed that. And let me see what I want to tell you this evening. I do still have my class to go registration open, and that is the flowering rain boots class. So there's a link in the description of this video for that, and I hope that you will join me for it. And then there's another link to my class that's next Monday night. So that's in person at my house at 6 o'clock. And I do hope that you can come to that as well. There is, oh, so I'm on Instagram now. So I would love it if you hop over there and follow me. I'm toying with figuring out how reels and stories and all of that works. So my content will be, a little spotty, little different here and there, but hopefully you'll be entertained by it as well. And then the last thing that I wanted to share tonight is that there is, it's a new month for Paper Pumpkin sign up. That always starts over on the 11th. And so I think that the next one's going to be great. It's called, let me get it right, Change is Beautiful, and they're focused on making milestones beautiful and a celebration of life and color. So it looks like there's a lot of butterfly imagery, chrysalis, that kind of thing. I'm not really sure what to expect from the actual stamp set, but I do think that it's going to be a good kit, especially with graduations and, wedding season and all of that coming. So that is that. Last thing, if you could like and share this video, that always helps me a ton. And if you do comment shared in the description of this video, then I will enter you in a drawing for a prize. And this week, Julie won, and I don't know, here it is. Julie won a set of the All Together Designer Series paper. So congratulations, Julie. All right, so I am going to switch my view now and get to, there we go. I think that's good. If that didn't work or if something's wrong, please just let me know in the comments. If I can find the comments, there we go. Oh, hey guys, I hadn't switched over. I hadn't seen all of you. Thanks for joining. It's nice to see you this evening. So I'm gonna get started, and this lovely card is what we're going to work on. So I felt like the Crane of Fortune is maybe perhaps a little classier imagery than St. Patrick's Day traditionally is, but it does reference luck and fortune, and so I felt like it was appropriate for today, not to mention the shades of green that we're using. So hey Ellie, thanks for joining us this evening. So let's get started. I have done some of the cutting and everything like I usually do ahead of time. And then we'll just do a little bit of stamping and assembly, and you'll see how easily this card comes together. And it does just have a really, really good impact when you see it between the dry embossing and the heat embossing, and just the designer series paper is beautiful too. So what I want to do with this panel, this is Evening Evergreen 3 3/4 by 5, and it is embossed with the painted texture 3D folder. And so I'm going to bring in my Wink of Stella here, and I just want to spritz this a little bit before I actually put it on the card. So I'm just going to hit it against my bone folder a few times. And I apologize, tonight's live is going to be kind of noisy between the smacking there and the heat emboss tool here in a minute, but I think that the results will be worth it. So thank you all for sharing. I appreciate that. All right. So I've got my Stamparatus already set up over here. And I'm just going to bring in the stamp case to give me a good surface for inking. And I'm going to stamp this crane on crumb cake paper with Versamark ink. And before I actually do that, I am going to bring in my embossing buddy and just make sure that there's no static left on the paper here. You can use a dryer sheet for this, or it doesn't always even necessarily feel like it's that important, but there are definitely times, especially with as dry as it is here, that I'm glad that I can do that. So now that that's done, we've got our Versamark here. Try to make sure that I'm in the frame. There we go. All right, so I'm just going to ink this up. I want to make sure that it's good and sticky. And come over here. So these stamps are distinctive stamps. So they have really incredible texture. And it is kind of hard to see Versamark when it first goes on. And then as it kind of, I don't know if it absorbs into the paper or just, I don't know, it just changes a little bit. But we will go ahead and use some white embossing powder on here. I had all sorts of ideas for this crane, and it was a little challenging for me to figure out how to do it the way I thought it should be, because I had gone over to Google and looked at actual pictures of different types of cranes. And so they are, of course, more than one color, which makes this not as accurate as I was originally going for, but I think it's still beautiful. So when I was in Texas last spring break, we were down at the coast, the Gulf Coast, and there is a whooping crane reserve there that it's kind of marshy, swampy, and it's one of the only places that they live and are breeding. So they had gotten really close to being extinct. So, all right, here comes the noise. So, as you know, you want to make sure that you heat up your tool before you start trying to do the actual powder. And that is just because if you hold the heat tool on the paper and powder for too long, it will burn. So now that this is good and hot, I'm just going to bring it in and kind of move it slowly around my image. And I'm just watching for it to go from this white to that shiny. Hopefully you can see some of that change happening. This is one of the most fun little techniques that we use in our paper crafting, and I don't do it all that often just because it is one more step and it's kind of noisy and all of that, but I definitely am glad when I do pull it out. So now I'm going to bring in my adorable little cut and emboss. This is the mini. This is on sale this month, and let me just tell you guys, it is 20% off, which brings it down to $48 off of $60. And it is really handy. I sometimes make it look like I struggle, which, you know, I guess I do that with everything, but it can be a little bit finicky, but for the size and the ease of use, I really do recommend this particular tool. So I'm just going to make sure that that stayed put, and now I'm going to feed this through here. So the sale is fantastic. It also includes select bundles out of the annual catalog, and again at 20% off. It's a little bit confusing because our bundles are always 10% off while they're bundled, which is usually only in the first catalog that they're featured in. So for this one, it's not 20% off of that bundled cost, but 20% off of the individual total. So definitely I would recommend checking that out if you don't already have this. And it's just a great way to really kick off your paper crafting adventures. Die cutting is easy and has a huge impact. And if you're like me and don't absolutely love fussy cutting, it is something that you really want to take advantage of. I will also tell you that as we near the end of the annual catalog sales period, so it will end May 1st, I think, or April 30th. And I don't know, sometimes they do weird days, and I don't know if that's just because of the calendar day or what. But anyway, whichever of those, we will get a whole new set of new in colors. But that also means that 5 of our current in colors will retire. And so that retirement list is going to come out next week, I believe. And I'm actually going to run this through again just because the more detailed, intricate dies do a little bit better if you run them twice. So those in colors that are retiring are Misty Moonlight, Magenta Madness, Bumblebee, Cinnamon Cider, and Just Jade. And let me just tell you, I am going to miss Misty Moonlight so much. And the Just Jade is gorgeous. And I mean, they're all lovely. So anything that you want in terms of ink refills, cardstock, even if you want an extra ink pad, anything like that, the blends, all of those things will go to while supplies last status once that retiring list comes out. And let me just tell you, they are the first thing to go, and you don't want to be wishing that you had gotten those things. So make sure that you head over and get that taken care of before that list comes out next week. Everything else usually is not quite such a race to get, so you've got time with that. But for this, you're gonna laugh. This, I don't even know how I did this, but I really thought that I had pulled out Magenta Madness for this piece. And then I went to get all of the pieces I needed to make the second version of this, and realized that this was not Magenta Madness, it's Melon Mambo. So it's also beautiful, but it is not going anywhere. So that kind of is my spiel about the in colors. And they are going to start showing us tomorrow what the new in colors are. So I'm excited for that. So these are all some of the perks of being a demonstrator. You get a discount and you get to see things early, and it's just kind of makes it feel like you're in the club, which I don't know. I was never in the club, so it's kind of a nice feeling. And if you're wondering about that discount or how you get signed up, I am always happy to answer questions. You get a starter kit for $99 that has $125 in product. Sorry, this one is not wanting to come out. Totally your choice. And then they even ship that free to you, which, as we know in the current market, that's really valuable. So Stampin' Up! Is having to raise shipping costs and product costs because of everything going on in the world, which I think is true of just about every business. So that's also another reason why, if you have any sense that you might want that cut and emboss machine, you should get it now before the price goes up. So I'm just going to trim off a little bit of my Designer Series paper circle here. Let me get that done. And now we can start assembling. So first thing, I'm just going to bring this Evergreen panel back, get some liquid glue on here. Now this one is a 3D folder, and so there is a lot of dimension to it, so it does tend to need just a little more adhesive. And you guys, I totally just ran out of glue. So give me just a second to find another bottle over here. So Seal has been on back order, or not back order, but unorderable for a while. I don't want to buy a whole new thing, which we do have. I would rather just get the refill. And so, of course, I'm completely out of that. So I'm going through the liquid glue even faster than usual. But with these 3D folders, you do really want to add a little bit more of the whatever adhesive you're using, just because it's a little bit harder to grip all that texture. All right, let's make sure that's pretty straight. There we go. Now, so this designer series paper is Symbols of Fortune is what it's called. And it's a specialty paper. So as you can see, there's gold on one side of each piece, and then the other side is not. And it's always hard to cover up that gold, but I really liked this bamboo panel. So that's what we're going to use. All right. And I just kind of liked the look of the circle going off like that. So line that up with the edge there. There it goes. You could also glue the entire circle and then just use your paper snips to trim that down. But I always feel like it doesn't look as straight as I think it should when I use my snips like that. So yes, you're right, Barbara. Thanks for joining me. Double face tape, or we also have Terran tape, same kind of concept. And it is actually one of the things that I'm going to use to help get my ribbon on, but it is nice. And I do really appreciate that we have so many options for adhesives, because they really do have their places that they're handy. So now with this one, there are little seams, or I don't know what you would call, like on here, it's a line that's cut but not an opening. I don't know how you would describe that, but anyway, glue could ooze through that, and I just don't really care because it dries clear, and for the most part it's going to be covered anyway. So because this is so delicate, I am just going to hold down all the different spots where I put liquid glue just to give it a second to adhere. And now we'll come and put our little crane on. So there we go. Sorry, I always look up at the computer and realize that I am working right under that banner that says the business. So sorry about that. I do try to stay where you can see me, but if it's ever a problem, let me know. All right, and I am going to just add this. Cranes are really interesting, awkward looking creatures. We watched one off so we had rented a house down in Rockport, Texas, and it was on a series of canals, and I should know what that's actually called, but anyway, so we had a dock, and crane landed on the dock and was fishing off of the dock into the canal at night because there was underwater lighting. So that was really kind of amazing to watch, but they are just really weird looking little creatures. So I am going to use this for the inside of my card. So I'll go ahead and get this on here. And you can see I am trying to go really light with this liquid glue. That is a little harder to manage when it's a brand new bottle. So I know maybe I should post that crane video. I still have it in our group so that you guys can see what I'm talking about. But just amazing to watch. And I'm not someone who's like, oh, let's go birding, or, you know, can really recognize birds, but it is fun every once in a while. So, all right. Get this on the inside, and then we'll stamp the sentiment. And then the ribbon that is in this product suite is really pretty. It's a satin soft succulent ribbon. And so this was the first time that I've used it, and I was trying to decide if I wanted to tie a bow with it or what to do. And it does tie really nice bows, but they are quite a bit bigger than what I was wanting for this particular card. And then I realized that if I cut the ribbon in half, I would actually get a little bit of a raw edge that frays, and I just thought that look was really fun. So we will do that. Let's see, I want to cut this way. And then I'm just going to, not quite halfway, I just want to trim off maybe at the top third. Doesn't have to be straight because it's going to fray a little bit anyway. There we go. And now here's where I'm bringing in that tear and tape, and just, it doesn't even need to be the full length, but I am going to place that on there and then just peel off this wax backing. And you can see even as I'm doing this, it is fraying just a little bit. Sometimes peeling the wax backing is easier said than done. So there we go. Finally caught an edge. All right. So I'm just going to layer that on like that. And now we will bring in just a little piece of basic white and my crumb cake ink. So this sentiment says, may much good luck. Sorry, wow, much luck and good fortune. So we'll get this on here. And then I'm actually going to trim it out because I didn't want a big sentiment to cover up a bunch of my crane. But all of the sentiments in this set are a little bit bigger. So if you can see, make sure there's no glare. This one is much more of a square shape rather than the long and thin, but I didn't want this long, and I just didn't want those words. So anyway, we will just shrink this one down so that I'm happy with the size. And you could, if you were worried about it, trace kind of an outline so that you had a clear place to cut, but I just decided to freehand it and it's gone okay. So I'll probably mess this one up now that I've said that. All right, I think that will work. So let me clear all of this. They're really nice sentiments. It's much more of like a wedding or graduation set of sentiments than what I normally look for, but it's really nice. And I made some really beautiful cards with it today, just as I was getting a feel for the set. I set my tear and tape, there we go, right in the screen. Okay, so we'll just use another piece of this. All right, and we are coming to the end of this project. So I have no idea how long that took because I don't have a clock in my office and my watches have all died. So I'm just kind of, going blind as far as timing, but that is that. Now you could also add some of the polished dots that were featured with this suite. I chose not to because they've had some non-orderable status and I didn't want to check today, so I just decided that ribbon would suffice. But I hope that you love this project. And if you have this bundle and are inspired, I hope you'll share some of your projects as well over on my group page. And I really appreciate all of the likes and shares. And I hope that you have a wonderful evening. And I will talk to you soon. Thanks again. Bye.